Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again for one of our In Conversation series. Today, I am delighted to be joined with one of our newer partners, the Humanise Collective in Canada, in Montreal and Toronto, with other offices around the world, but we're going to learn more about it in a second or so. So please, I'd like to welcome you, and Jean-Sébastien Monty is on the call, and Sébastien Fauré. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome.
Morning,
Hello.
Paul, or good afternoon.
Thank you. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for jumping on the call. Really looking forward to welcoming you to the Mission Hubs group. And as is the case with all of these, we'd like to know a little bit about your agency. So, maybe if you could tell us in your own words how you got started, what you're structured, the type of people that you work with and the type of work you do. Because I know there are certain similarities between you and the Mission group in the way that you're structured, but also there's some wonderful things that are different, which is what we like.
Sure. So actually, the Humanise Collective, although officially, if you will, in quotation, those famous quotations, started in around 2014, 15, but it had been in both of our heads independently for a while. It was a bit further ahead in Sebastien's mind, I have to admit. And we had a chance encounter halfway around the world and bumped into each other and said it'd be great to meet up for coffee or lunch. Became a really long supper. And then out of that was born the Humanise Collective. We knew each other from our careers back in the 90s, so we're dating each other at the biggest agency in Canada. And the idea came from us trying to figure out how do we compete against the big international networks, the WPPs of this world, or the Publicists, or Omnicoms, or whatever that were, in all the major cities in terms of marketing and whatnot. And again, the much bigger independents, of which there are less of in Canada, but still. And we figured if we try and do it the same way that they were doing, we're never going to succeed. We're in Montreal here, which is kind of a tertiary market in North America, and Toronto as well, which is a secondary market now, with the US having taken the lead from whether it's New York or whatever the head office is. And so it's how do we do this? Like, how do we create those relationships without just being an ad agency with a lot more to it? So we figured, why don't we be an organization with a lot more to it, in which there is an ad agency as well. And that's where the idea came out of either creating some different brands with a particular expertise around it, or integrating, as we like to say, instead of acquiring, integrating particular agencies with a specific expertise that we would be able to leverage to help our clients do better work, but help them in different ways that they would never think about our flagship agency, which is Bleu Blanc Rouge. Or BBR, as we say in English, an 80s, an agency created in the 80s. And that's how we started creating consulting and our own media group, which was within Bleu Blanc Rouge, but had a hard time competing because then clients would say, well, I can't use your media group because Bleu Blanc Rouge is in conflict with my existing creative shop. So you guys understand the notion. And that's how it came to be that I think Bleu Blanc Rouge was 75, 80 people back then, and now we're about 275 employees with 8 or 9 different agency brands, which sometimes can seem complex, but it's helped us develop relationships, not just in Canada, our 2 main offices, but we work internationally with some of our brands. So we think it's worked tremendous for us. Does that have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think the genesis of the collective comes from a really difficult statement, meaning the networks are killing the independents and they're killing the industry, and it comes from our guts. It came from frustration. I mean, we saw it in our market. So many great advertising agency being bought by big networks and becoming a dry grape after 2-3 years, and that was not acceptable. And I don't want to make a course on the history of Quebec and the French-speaking advertising scene and all that stuff, but I don't think it's important. But what's important is some entrepreneurs are looking at the market and say, what the fuck is happening? Like why are we selling out our great agencies, our great flags, and then becoming a regional office of a big network? And that's basically the root of our intention and why we create this collective. This collective has been a way to respond to this conquest of big networks coming from other places, and creating something that can exist, survive, thrive, and at one point, just be there and do some great work coming from another place on the planet. So the root or the genesis of this this collective is very, very deep, and it's not just we didn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, let's create this thing. It's a mean for an end and not an end in itself, and that mean is to make sure that we are in control of our destiny and we can do things the way we want to do it for the benefit of our generation of talented people that come from this area.
Okay, yeah, I mean, and ultimately, of course, the route that you've chosen, I mean, running an agency is never the easiest thing in the world, let's be honest, but you've created a route that's not widely used. But what services do you have? Because there are several businesses, aren't there, within the collective? So what services do you offer out to clients?
Want to start, Jess? Or
Yeah, sure.
Let's continue,
Well,
continue this method.
It started with Bleu Blanc Rouge, as I mentioned earlier, or BBR. We say in English, it's just easier. Which is a creative agency, 360-degree strategic and creative services. And then from there, we added a very special, I'll say, in particular, consultancy, more like a left brain consultancy with our own proprietary methodology called the structuring mapping process, or SMP, that really helps us understand the roots of an issue or a problem. We use it for marketing benefits, but of course we can use it for a bunch of anything. And then that can use as the ultimate brief for our agency with our clients that are kind of stuck in a rut and don't know where to go. So that was the first piece. Then we added a digital advertising agency, if you will, that we've since, it's 2024, but back then that we've since now integrated within Bleu Blanc Rouge, or BBR. Then the next one was launching our own media shop instead of having it as Bleu Blanc Rouge Media, which is called Glassroom. So the first one, so Bleu Blanc Rouge, l'Institut D, and then Glassroom. And that's been tremendous for us because we go about it in a very different way than the traditional media shops. We work a lot with clients in, we say here, I guess you guys call it in-housing or internalization. So we're not afraid of it. Actually, we promote it with clients. A much more hybrid model than pure in-housing, but still we've helped clients on a 3-year fixed mandate internalize their media practice. So there's a consultancy aspect to that. And it's just growing gangbusters, and through that we're looking at international plays. We've also since then started Tulip to leap to a new idea. So marketing plans, consulting, growth plans, and the like. With them, just like l'Institut D, we work in the US and in Europe with really top brands. So we're quite happy with that. It lets us work on those fields instead of regional plays per se. Our own production outfit for content and what like, called Field Trip. And then we integrated a Brandebourg, which is a consultancy for brand architecture, packaging design, and the like. We had tried many times to develop it through Bleu Blanc Rouge, but again, similar to my answer before, it's always difficult because then conflict situation happens with clients, and then they don't want to give it to Bleu Blanc Rouge because they've got another agency, and that's been tremendous, especially a lot of CPG there and so forth. And then recently, 2 different things, another agency, a really strong independent shop in Toronto. Again, here, if you know the market, there's a francophone aspect to it, or French aspect to it in Quebec, and it's a very small market here, and the players are French or French speaking, if you will, not French from France, but French speaking. And the rest of Canada is Anglophone. So there's always that play culturally of, well, are you really a Montreal agency or you're a Toronto agency? And both agencies are national, but they let us connect with certain brands in a particular way in terms of how the relationships are based. So that's been interesting for us. A lot of growth in the last few months with them. And last but not least, JSM Studios has been around since the 60s, actually. A really interesting studio or agency that's a mix between architecture, museum, and storytelling, or cultural exhibits and whatnot. And we have an office in Singapore through them. About 12 people or so there, been there for 20 years. And we work across the globe, whether it's with brands that want to develop their own museum or exhibit or whatnot, whether with museums per se, countries sometimes on cultural aspects, or cities. So really interesting creative outlet. strategic outlet, a bit different than the rest, but so interesting to see how the different shops are starting to work together with GSM as well on certain projects.
So that gives you kind of the story of, you know, how we add up some stuff, and I think that's part of the assembly of the collective. If I want to summarize it, we basically have an umbrella brand called Humanise Collective, and then we have 4 clusters. The first one is consulting, Tulip and l'Institut. Then we have AOR, Le Blanc Rouge, or BBR, and The Garden. And then we have media with Glassroom. And we have experiential with GSM. So basically, those 4 clusters are supported by technology. And that kind of system help us to become a great one-stop shop for big accounts or big clients, but also a list or an addition of specialty shops for smaller mandate, very, very specialized. So that find a way in this marketplace, which is not that big. We're not in London, we're not in Paris or New York or in Canada. I think we need to have both specialized service offering and the whole shebang for people that want to have everything integrated.
I was going to say, so it allows you to basically mold a solution around what a particular client you're talking to. In terms of clients, are you able to share a few of the sort of names that we might recognize internationally, the people that you're working with at the moment or have recently worked with?
Sure. Some we can't, unfortunately.
We can't.
Some of those we'd really love to. Let's say a really one of the biggest companies in the world based out in California.
Yeah, oh, I can't imagine what that one is. Thank you.
Yeah, so so that's one for reasons that we can consider that we're just not allowed to speak about it. However, a lot of different hotel groups. We've worked a lot with Marriott International in the past. Are now working with Four Seasons Hotels and a few other, and those were all international mandates, either branding or marketing planning. Bosch Health as well. Started working with them out in Europe with an Institut. And then that's where the beauty of the collective comes in, is as the client's needs and or challenges evolve, then we can bring in other partners within the collective. So they brought in Tulip to help them, and now we're producing a lot of content with Field Trip for the US. So that I think is a client, but a good example of how we can work together. We're working with various OEMs from Bombardier to BRP to Harley Davidson and the like, doing media for Campari, Burger King. We do creative for Carlsberg in Canada, work with SodaStream, Desjardins, which is, or Desjardins, if you prefer, which is a Quebec-based financial co-op. It's massive. It's on the same scale pretty much as the 5 big Canadian banks. They're a very dear client of us. Metro, a big grocer, and then you've got other CPGs that we've done work with and still continue to be quite close to, like a Lactalis, for example, would be known internationally and whatnot. So a wide range of, oh yeah, Bimbo as well. So breads, Mexico based, and they bought the biggest bread company here, Weston Breads, and so we work with them as well on all branding and package design and the like. So it gives you an idea of the breadth and the type of mandates. Some of these are consulting, some of them are creative. And then in terms of more the cultural, we work with the Smithsonian Museum, we work with National Geographic, we work with France for the design of their new pavilion for the expo happening next year in Osaka, City of Singapore, you name it. We work with a bunch of different groups and brands across the world, and a lot in Canada, of course.
Some great names on that list. Very envious. Some amazing clients.
We have a small portion of a big name.
Well, yeah. nevertheless, it's a big name, so that's good in the credentials. I'm always curious about this, and you touched on it, Jez, I think, right at the top of the call when you said you guys knew each other. But what's your individual background? How did you get into the creative industry? I'm always fascinated when you talk to creative entrepreneurs, what their journey is, because it's never a linear journey in my experience.
No, I can start. For me, it's absolutely not linear. It started from me being a ski pro up in the Laurentians here in Quebec, and then realizing when I wanted to get a house with the woman I was going to be marrying, and I'm still married to and quite happily, I've realized there's no way I can raise a family doing this. And then, through injuries, I got into marketing in the ski industry. And was lucky enough to meet a few agency folks who offered some internships And I chose one that actually is through which I met Sebastien at Cassette here in our market, that's very well known. It's an amazing school. It used to be, I think it still is, for marketers and advertisers and creatives. And that's pretty much where the journey started. Then started my own agency, and then with Sebastien in 2014. So very nonlinear. Did not think whatsoever I'd ever get in this industry, but through injuries and financial realization, I figured I got to get another job than teaching skiing. So that's my journey.
I think the financial realization is one of the things that dawns on all of us. It certainly dawned on me when I decided as a young Paul I wanted to become an astronaut. Then I realized that actually I was not going to make any money of that because I was British. I was not clever enough and too fat. So that idea went out the window. Sebastien, tell us your story.
Oh man, it's crazy. So I'm an immigrant. I'm a French immigrant. So we came from France in 1976. My parents came to Canada to give us the chance that they didn't have in France, and actually it worked. So at 18 years old, I was an entrepreneur. We were young and stupid, so we created a clothing store. We didn't lose money, but we basically didn't make any. And at the time, I was a barman in a bar, and talking with a lot of people and making money by getting some tips and stuff like that. So basically, I had that kind of external sense of connecting with people, and then I was selling condominium when I was at university, and then there was a contest, and I don't know why I was getting out of the pub at that time, and I said, why don't I try this? And there was some interns. The prize was 4 internship. And I did a contest, and I read a book before that contest by luck. And the answer of the question in that contest was in that book that I read. So basically, I won the contest, got within an agency, and then did 2 years in direct marketing, 2 years in sponsor, more than 2 years, 3 years in promotion, and then I did about 9-10 years in sponsorships. And then I got into Cassette, and I became the general manager of Cassette in Montreal. And in 2004, I decided that it was time for me to spread my wings. I think that's the expression in English. And then I took over BBR. I was kind of the retirement package of the founders. So I did the first transgenerational transfer, and then I met GS again after 7 years. And I was referring to, we were in Hawaii on a beach in a club, and I said, "What the fuck are you doing here?" and and I said, "Let's do something together," and that's basically how we create this collective. So non-linear, that's for sure. And it was, I got into business not by mistake, but by chance, I should say. And since then, I never regret it, because I think it's one of the best jobs in the world. You can work on different things at a speed that is very interesting. And the quality of the people that we meet is fantastic. So that's how it happened.
Great. Well, thank you both for sharing. I mean, great life experiences, and I think that just sort of adds to my my belief that actually people with those types of life experiences end up in this business, and that's what makes it fascinating and interesting, because you have such a rich bunch of characters who for some reason come together.
That's said so well, Paul. We could have said it any other way, but that's it. It comes off better that way. Thanks for that.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Again, you touched on this a little bit earlier on in the call, but the Canadian market is perhaps more unique than any other market in certainly in North America, but probably across Europe in the way that it's structured. For anybody looking to enter into the Canadian market, are there any things that you could sort of say, you need to know this, you need to watch out for this? And I'm thinking purely from an agency point of view, if they've got a client going, well, actually, how can you help us in Canada? Obviously, call you guys, but what would your watch outs be potentially?
So I don't think we're more unique. Everyone's unique, in their own way. If you go to Mexico, North America, as you just said, I mean, they've got their own sets of challenges or issues or whatnot. But I guess the best word I can put on the Canadian market is it's textured. You've got different global brands, you've got different national brands, you've got local players, both on the client and agency side. And then you've got US or French or UK brands, for example, that are dictating what they want for the market. But then you layer in the whole French Canadian, or Francophone, as we say here, into that mix. and the broad geographical considerations and culture, because there's a lot of immigration coming here. So it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's fractured, except for having two media ecosystems, French and English. But you got to be prepared to deal with that texture, if you will, on many different levels. It does keep you on your toes, I have to admit. Seb, what would you say to that?
Well, I think there's maybe two things I can add. The first one is people see Canada as a big market. Actually, it's a very it's big in terms of size and you know the width of Canada is very big in terms of the dimensions, but in terms of population, it's only 35 million people. So everybody is in the same kind of in a very very thin section of the whole Canada, and within that line, there's at least four totally different mindset. So go West Coast, the prairies, Central Canada, Eastern Canada. People are thinking very, very differently. And I think the biggest mistake that people do, they either think that we are like the States, or if they go to Quebec, they think like we're friends. And we're none of those. We're a different mix. And it came from the fact that we were at the beginning a colony. So that kind of heritage of suffering is still there. So there's notion of independence, small size, four different time zones, or four different mindset, totally different in terms of culture and references and behavior. So someone who wants to conquer Canada need to understand this dynamic. And it's not a single bullet type of strategy that will make it work. It's a mixed of different, very, very niche tactics and strategies. So someone needs to be prepared and willing to go the full length and do the homework properly in order to be successful. It's not an easy one to get. It's like if you play Risk, there's some big territory at the Risk game, and that's one of us. It's we have so many ways to enter. It's difficult to defend.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, Paul, Seb said something interesting in that there's a wide range of considerations because of geography, because of the different cultures, because of the languages and so forth. And because it's not that big a country, it's actually said we're approaching 40 million now. I know it seems wild because we've been at a standstill forever. It's tough sometimes to calculate the return on investment for certain brands, for what you need to do. You need to address these different cultural distinctions and so forth. So it's tough sometimes, and you're trying to take shortcuts, and it can hurt you in one market or the other, just because of the cost. Sometimes it makes it difficult.
Yeah, no. Thank you for that. I mean, it's certainly been my experience, and I'm sure the people watching this who sort of had clients that go, "Oh yeah, we'll do Canada from America," or it's the same as the French language version, isn't it? And it's like, no, it really isn't. I just come back, if I could, to your day jobs. I mean, running an agency. I mean, a lot of the people watching this will be running agencies, or will have teams within agencies that are running those. I mean, it's not an easy career. It's the greatest job in the world in many respects, but it also can be terrifying. And at the moment, our industry, as ever, is tumultuous. It's going through lots of changes, ups and downs. Are there any things that keep you guys awake at night from your perspective, from your agency, from your place in the world, your country? Are one or two things that you think, oh blimey? And equally, I guess, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the next 6 to 12 months? Sorry, that is an enormous question.
I'll start with you said what keeps us up at night. I mean, for my part, I think there's a couple of things, and they all have to do with, I don't know, I don't want to say keeping people happy, but making sure our clients are happy by providing real added value to their businesses, keeping our people happy because they're working on really challenging, fun, exciting work and doing good product. At the same time, you don't want just people to be happy. You want to push yourself. So you want to find ways of staying ahead of the curve, on all fronts, whether it's creative, whether it's media, whether it's consulting. And how do you do it on all those fronts? And it's not just about advertising work and so forth. And then last but not least, I think developing, I'll call them the right relationships that are a good match for who we are in our organization. We are by no means good for everyone. No agency is good for everyone, no matter what you say. I think finding those right relationships and through trial and error, I think those would probably be the three things for me that come to mind.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest challenge we have, and I think that's a worldwide challenge, so it's not only for Canada. It's we believe and we say that we are a creative organization, meaning we are capable of changing, and we're not. We're actually very, very conservative. And the challenge we have is that we need to give advice to clients how to change while we're doing everything the same way we've been doing it since the 1990s. So I think the biggest challenge for us is to kick our ass to come up with new ways of doing things for people that are looking for new ways of doing things. And it's funny because I'm hearing, you know, what we're just saying and how we explain ourselves and how do we present ourselves. And if you think about it, we could have done this talk 20 years ago and we would use kind of the same word, except we didn't talk about content or stuff like or social media and shit like that. So I think the biggest challenge for all of us is to kick our ass and say, okay, guys, if we want to lead change, if we want to be a creative force, how do we transform ourselves? And that's basically the mandate and the challenge that we give to everybody on this floor and across our different offices is to, okay, wake up. It's about time. You were trying to sell creativity, innovation to all our clients for many years. Can we do it on our own? And that's the biggest challenge we have ahead of us.
I think that's a very interesting point. I think it's certainly something that, you know, the likes of Michael Farmer would agree with, given his various books, and certainly, I would concur. I mean, we are an industry that likes to do things because we like to do things, and we've always done them that way. So I don't think it's necessarily a unique thing to you guys, but it's a very well made point. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm conscious of the time, but what I wanted to sort of close on. The collective is, as you've said at the top of the call, a fairly sizable organization. If someone's interested in engaging with you guys, what's the best way to do that? Is we can put your details on the end of the screen here, but is there one of you? Is there somebody else they should contact?
Contact me, and if I don't get back in touch with you within 15 minutes, call Seb. But usually I'll get back quick, whether it's LinkedIn, right, which has become the de facto platform for contacting business-wise. I'm available there. Put my contact information as well through our website. But yeah, text me, DM me, email me.
I think Jess is the right contact point. I would add a couple of precision. I think for the partners, I think what we have to offer, the structural mapping process is one of the things that we own, the proprietary methodology that is crazy. It's something that you know, when I discovered, I tried to buy the whole company at about 51%, and I still regret that I couldn't buy 100%. So that's a very, very unique thing. The internalization, media capabilities that we've developed over the couple of years are very, very useful and a big trend in the marketplace. And the third thing, we invest a lot in consulting, in value creation, and we have a model that's quite useful. So basically, our two consulting arms could be used by other partners around the world. We're more than happy to share those with them because I think they're not a deal breaker, but they're making a good creative agency more powerful fast, and that's something that we're willing to share to everybody that is a friend of ours. So I think that would be the best thing. I would ask JS to provide some support or some insight or opportunities of collaborations.
That's great. I mean, another powerful tool in the toolbox is what we all need as agencies, and anything that sort of manages to upstream that conversation with our clients is always very welcome. Is always very welcome.
Yeah, I think this one of the things is I always say to our people, I say we need to move from the kids table to the parents table, and those consulting capabilities that we have is a really, really great tool to get back in the C-suite where the big decisions are made.
Agreed. Gentlemen, thank you. No, that's fine. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Mission Hubs. We're really looking forward to working with you guys, and looking forward to obviously sharing all of this great stuff, meeting in person at one of our upcoming events. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the invitation.
Bye. Thanks, Paul. Cheers.